I would like to introduce to you a married couple from Trinity, San Antonio, who I just met last month. Dr. Carey Latimore is the department chair of the history department in Trinity, and his wife, Anita, is just wonderful. She is from the Philippines and an educator. She teaches 5th grade SPED, which is special education, and that is so important to education, and we love that you do that. So I'd like to invite Dr. Latimore today. He has many wonderful things to say and very progressive with the history ideas, and especially this area in Tawakona. He was impressed, and I still hope he maintains his impression. So here he is, Dr. Latimore.
How is everyone doing today?
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe it's that preacher voice that's still. So I wanted to thank each and every one of you to the Limestone County Historic Commission. I was a former member of the Bear County Historical Commission, so I have a lot of appreciation for the historical commissions, but I really appreciate what you guys have done, because for a small county, you've done a lot. And you've published a lot, and I think in many ways you've done a lot more than Bear County has done, and that includes San Antonio. So there's a lot to be, there's a lot that we can learn from you. To all of you on the panel, I'm appreciative of being here, and of course to my wife. I want to talk today about Trinity, Tawakona, which is a weird word for me to say. I'm a Virginian, and we do have some names like that, Rappahannock, thing, Kiskak, things like that, but Tawakona is just an interesting sounding name. I think I pronounced it right. So Trinity, Tawakona, and the things that I wonder. I'm not going to talk about your history, that's been done. You've done a much better job than I am able to do. But I did want to think of Trinity, Tawakona, and what do I wonder when I think about what's here. When a group of founders came to this place more than 150 years ago, I wondered if they thought that out of the stones of 3 colleges that had failed, and lots of schools fail, the majority of schools probably that actually start do not do well. Even if they start today, we think about all the schools that have started over the last 10 to 15 years and how many of them are now in decline, or how many schools in the Northeast or in other places of this great country are in decline. I wonder if they thought that the school that they started here in 1869 would be what it is today. I wonder if they thought that Trinity would be the best college in the West, the best regional college in the West, one of the best colleges in Texas. I'd like to say the best college in Texas. I've been there for 15 years, so I think I have maybe I'm a little bit prejudiced in that, but I think that we're the best college in Texas. And I wonder if they thought that Trinity would have the faculty, staff, the underpinnings, the extension that it has. I doubt if they thought that. I doubt if they thought that in 1869, when they came to this place, in a state that was still not yet fully readmitted into the Union because of the Articles of Reconstruction. I wonder if they thought that in a state that slaves had only been free for 5 years, that Trinity would be where it is today. I wonder if they thought that this place that was probably just field then would be still studying its history, learning from its history, gaining from its history. I wonder if they had thought that there would have been that book that that's right over there, that there would have been anything that they would have left. I wonder if they thought about that they would be remembered. Now maybe John Boyd had his whole idea that he would have a cemetery over there. But beyond that, I wonder if they thought that it would be what it is. And this place is filled with history. Comanche Crossing, Juneteenth. All of these things play into who we are and what we are and what we want to be. Emancipation, hopes, dreams. Trinity's all of those things. Remembering, hoping. I wonder if John Boyd ever thought that we would have a great tennis team. Supposedly back in the 1960s, we had perhaps the best tennis team in the nation. Had a Wimbledon champion, I believe, at Trinity University. My goodness. Now, I know that Trinity's probably moved a little bit away from the alcohol prohibition. I'm a good Baptist, so I still hold to the alcohol prohibition. But I wonder if, beyond that, if there were many things that would have surprised them. So how can we take the past, learn from the past, and allow the past to provide us a bridge to the future? The thing with that is we need to remember our past, and so that's why we're here. That's why we have historical commissions. And yet, in a society such as what we live in, it becomes difficult to, in a sense, transmit that information from one generation to the next. Our cell phones sometimes get in the way. Cancel culture sometimes gets in the way of actually talking about things. Sometimes we don't want to learn about history. I grew up in Virginia, and my ancestors, the elders of my family sometimes didn't want to talk about that history. They wanted to let sleeping birds lay, or whatever that statement is, let dogs lie where they are, whatever it is. Sleeping dogs, let them lie, let them die, let them, whatever those things are. Yeah, that's correct. They did not want to remember it because they thought it was too painful. What they forgot and what they did not acknowledge was that that was who they were. And so sometimes when we think that history is painful or uncomfortable, we forget that that's a piece of who we are. And unless if we come to acknowledge it, we do not move forward. So how do I do that with them? And what do I think about that when I come to Limestone? I've been here a number of times. And one of the things that amazes me is how much it's like the county that I grew up in. I grew up in a little farming community in Virginia, about 8,000 people in the entire county. My town, the town of Saluda, has about 600, I guess. Lots of farmland. We grew up on a farm. And there's a different kind of life. And even though some of my ancestors didn't want to talk about certain things, I knew a lot about the county I lived in. There was lots of history. And if you were not from that area, and when I say you were not from that area, not born in that area, you were considered to come here. My grandmother, who married my grandfather, was considered to come here even though she had been in that county for 80 years. She was still from that county, which was right next to our county, so it was a long distance. Kind of when she talked about how far Mahia was from here, something like that, but it was considered a distance to just cross a swamp. I don't understand that, but that was how they felt. But they knew their history, they knew people. I would bump into people who would say that they remembered my grandfather and my great-grandfather, even though my great-grandfather died 50 years before I was born. That's how they remembered everything, every person. People would say that they were kin to you. They didn't know where, they didn't know how, but they would say that we were related. And as I looked through genealogical stuff, I found that they were correct. They had those connections. Sometimes when we leave home, we sever those connections. We forget who we were, where we came from. And then that piece of us is always left missing. When I came here that first time, it was either the first time or the second time, because I gave a speech at the library, then I went to the reunion grounds. And someone approached me and they said, "Hey, we want to take you on a trip." Now, if I was in the city, I don't know if I'd get in the car or start following somebody in their car, not knowing where I'm going. But it was like where I grew up, and I trusted. And so they took me out to Booker T. Washington Park, which is where Comanche Crossing is, and they said that my grandfather, my great-grandfather, was free here. They wanted to share that with me. They didn't know me. but they wanted to share that with me. Another time I was here, Linda, Bill, and Jim brought me here. Again, I didn't know where we were going. I did not expect to come to Trinity. I didn't know a lot about the Tawakana, or even later on the other campus, the Waxahachie campus, I guess. But again, I trusted because I knew that they loved that history. And so when people talk about loving their history, they actually say it. As a historian, I kind of trust them a little bit more. You know, they could have been Ted Bundy, but I didn't know. They could have been taking me out to some old swamp somewhere, and later they find my wife and me dead 50 years later, and there's a little memorial stone to me later on.
We got a good cemetery though.
Yeah, you do. But I'm not ready to go there yet. And they walked me around this ground. They told me about Trinity. They told me about the people who were here. They talked about the other campuses that were here. They talked about this place during World War II. All of this stuff, all of these legacies, all of these different pieces coming together. And I was sitting there learning from them and loving every moment of it. Even if the birds were on my feet and I was getting stuck all over the place, I loved it. It was hot that day. It had to be 100 degrees. And so each time I visit here, if I go to Grossbeck Library, people are pointing me out to things and saying, this is a Bible that was from the 1850s, or this was the church records from 1850s. And I see how people like Teresa love their history. And they love sharing it. In a sense, that is a gift. In a society where everybody's in a rush, I'm in San Antonio, everybody seems to be in a rush. And San Antonio is a slower city compared to others, but everybody seems to be in a rush. Everybody seems to be on their cell phone. Everybody seems to be occupied with other things. And when I come here, people seem to just care about people and history and wanting to learn about that history. Even though 150 years have passed, this place has never forgotten Trinity. I would hope that Trinity feels the same way. And I want to make sure that they do, and I plan on making sure that they do. You know, in Joshua, they think about the Bible, and I'm going to improvise here a little bit. I think about the Bible, and I think it's chapter 5 of Joshua. Jim probably didn't, but I hope I'm right here. And as the Israelites are about to cross the Jordan River, God tells them to take stones as they were about to pass and use those stones as a memorial. And so whenever they would think about who they would remember what God has done for them. In a sense, Trinity, these are Trinity stones. And I hope that Trinity keeps those stones, remembers those stones, as you have. And may it always stand as a memorial to who we are, what we are, and what we want to become. Cultivate it. Let us pass it down together. Let us reestablish relationships together. And let us be on one accord. Thank you. God bless you. And God bless Trinity.